Welcome to the Early Educator Podcast, where we talk about everything that you need when it comes to growing your business, overcoming obstacles, and making an impact on not only the children in your care, but your community and your family. My name is Blake, and today with me we have Becky Haynes. And so, Becky, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, Becky, if you can you explain to us what you do and why you're on the podcast today?
I am with the Vanderbilt Kennedy Center Triad, which is our autism center. And my role there is I am our director of preschool initiatives. So I get to do all things early childhood. I get to look for opportunities to expand our preschool and early childhood initiatives and programming to make sure that we're really offering opportunities that meet the needs of early childhood educators and service providers who are doing the hard work that's out there.
Okay, awesome. Well, awesome. I know today we're gonna focus on mainly like autism and play in
Hmm.
early childhood, and so I'm excited to talk about that. I think a lot of our educators will be interested in this too. So I guess to start us off, can you explain like why play is such like an important part in like childhood development in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love this whole idea of play. When I think about play, I think many of us have seen the Mr. Rogers quote and think about play as the work of early childhood and early learning. And so we don't have early childhood without play. And so play is play is essential when it comes to when it comes to early childhood and when it comes to our early learning classrooms and our early childhood settings. And so when we think about early childhood development, we really can't tease apart play from that. And it needs to be such an important part of the work that we're doing. Um, you know, play is play, play is fun. It should be fun, um, but play is an integral part of a child's developmental process as well. Um,
Mm,
so so it's the work of the early childhood world.
yeah, awesome. So I guess from your experience, how might when it comes to like young children with autism or maybe on the spectrum, how are ways where play can look a little bit different for them, or is it different?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, children go through different stages of play as they develop, and some children, like, each stage might look a little different depending on the individual child, and the same is true for our autistic learners or children who are on the spectrum. And something that we might see in many of our young learners with autism is that we might see them showing a preference for maybe engaging in solitary play rather than social play. That's not something that would be atypical to see. Or maybe we might see some of our learners who are on the spectrum showing a stronger desire for autonomy during play rather than maybe say kind of conforming to what the group might be engaging in. So, kind of going along with the flow of the group and the behaviors of the group, or maybe imitating what others are doing. Maybe there's going to be a preference for really kind of engaging in what it is that they want to engage in, and having a strong preference for autonomy, which is not a bad thing. That can be a really great strength. And so we might start to see some of those preferences and what we might think of as differences from what we're noticing in other learners at that age start to develop and emerge. We might see a strong preference or strong interest start to form around certain items or objects or play routines. Um, a lot of times we might see enthusiasms emerge or a focus on kind of high interest areas. If maybe there's a show that a child really likes and they start to incorporate that into their play routines, or there's an object that they really have a strong affinity towards and so they gravitate towards incorporating that into their play. And so that's not uncommon to see in young autistic learners when they engage in play. And we might see that children on the spectrum start to really engage deeply with preferred activities, while maybe some of their same age peers may gravitate towards playing with a wider variety of activities and materials for shorter amounts of time, whereas some of our learners who are on the spectrum might engage for longer periods of time in a more kind of deeply engaged manner. And so kind of it's just a different style of play. It's not right or wrong. It's just a different style of play. It shows different strengths and different interests. So just something to look out for when you're in the classroom and engaging with children.
Okay. Let's see. What are some things educators might notice during play that may help them better understand like how a child learns and engages? Is there like certain things they can pick out?
Yeah, I think some things that we want to kind of be paying attention to are just what are the materials or the toys or kind of those play routines that children tend to gravitate towards, or what do they spend their time interacting with? That can show us kind of what kind of style of play do they have? What kind of learner are they? Um, how do they interact with those materials? Do they narrate their play actions? Do they line up or sort the materials? Do they engage in pretend play when they're interacting with those materials? Are they acting out scenes from shows or movies or books that they've read?
Mm.
Um, do they show a preference for playing by themselves or with other people? If they are playing with other people, are they dictating how others play, or are they kind of going with the flow of the group? Um, like all of these kinds of things give us really great insight to their social skills, to their cognitive skills, to their problem solving skills, flexibility, creativity, the executive
Mm.
functioning skills. Um, we just kind of want to be observers and take note of what it is that they play with, how they play with it, how long they play with it, um, what their preferences are, and all of those things start to kind of piece together a puzzle of the style of play, the preferences, and strengths that individual learners bring to the table that we can start to kind of layer together and
Mm.
use um, to build a more full play picture.
Okay. Um, are there any certain play styles that are common for autistic children that educators might not immediately recognize as like meaningful play?
Yeah, so again, and because autism is such a huge spectrum, you've met if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. But
Mm.
we know that there's a lot of strengths that people with autism have, and so uh, so we might see individuals with autism who are great at problem solving, and um, so if there might be um, play activities that have a lot of structure to them that
Hmm.
like that individuals might thrive with a lot of structure versus more open-ended play might be a little trickier to navigate. Um, so if we can incorporate some supports into visual supports and structure into some play routines, that might really be beneficial for some of our autistic learners. some problem solving activities like puzzles and structures and cause and effect sorts of toys and activities and routines might be a really great um, type of play style for some of our learners who really thrive with that sort of style. We have a lot of learners who might gravitate towards like Legos, where it's really structured and there's a something that they can follow along with, and it really makes a lot of concrete sense. Um, and then we have a lot of learners who are sensory players, right? And so
Hmm.
being able to kind of get in there and kind of feel around and explore different sensory textures and experiences can be really powerful. And so kind of the key is just having a lot of different types of play materials available so that we meet all of those different unique learning needs and play needs is the key there. Because again, all of our learners are different, and we want to make sure that we have the play environment that supports all of those unique learning needs. And that's true not just for our students who are on the spectrum, but all of our students are
Hmm.
going to benefit from having that really wide variety of play materials available.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. I think one thing that I think you've talked about before in the past is taking like a strengths based approach. So what are some of those strengths that you would say children that may be on the spectrum that may show during play?
Yeah, so I think yeah, definitely this is something that when we talk about neurodiversity, it goes hand in hand with neurodiversity as a strengths-based approach. And so um, our our students who are on the spectrum, we know that a lot of times they can thrive when there's structure and routine, when they tend to be do well with visual learning, so visual supports can be really helpful. Um, when things are functional, when they make sense and can be connected to the world around them so that it doesn't seem like this some arbitrary thing that we're applying. So functional play can be very powerful. Um, and so if we can apply those things to the play that they're engaging in, then it's going to be a lot more meaningful. If we can build play around their interests and make it more motivating and engaging, that's going to be really helpful. That's true for
Yeah.
anybody. If I like what I'm doing, if I'm motivated by what I'm doing, I'm going to be a lot more engaged, and I'm going
Yeah.
to want to engage for a longer period of time. But kind of building in those pieces, those elements, the structure, the predictability, the visual nature of things, those are all going to be beneficial for many of our learners. And we like to do that with many other classroom routines, but thinking about how we can apply that to play as well can be very helpful in making it more successful.
Okay. Awesome. I think you kind of answered the next question, but I'll ask anyway just in case. So I guess how can educators build on their strengths rather than trying to like redirect the children like away from like their interest or what other kids' interests are? Do you have anything to add for that? I guess.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get worried about needing to change the way kids play
Yeah.
rather than meeting them where they're at, right?
Hmm.
And I think sometimes we can lose the forest through the trees by doing that and miss an opportunity for connection. And that connection is such a powerful moment that sets us up for so many other learning opportunities down the road.
Hmm.
And and so rather than I think sometimes as adults we think of ourselves as play managers and play directors rather than play partners.
Mm.
And because we're teachers, we're educators, we're supposed to be teaching new skills. And so it doesn't feel as natural to just be a play partner who goes and joins in. We're always thinking 10 steps ahead of, okay, well, what can I be teaching next? What can
Yeah.
I be doing next?
Yeah.
And so to sit back and think, all right, how can I just be present in this moment and connect with this child and really allow them to experience the joy, and in experiencing the joy, that's going to really open the door for learning to occur.
Mm.
There's a lot of power in that space and in that presence. Um, and so I would say just join in. Just join in and show interest in what they're interested in. I think sometimes that can feel a little challenging to do because we might not naturally be interested in what they're interested in. But if we can show some genuine interest, that's going to allow some connections to start forming, and that's going to allow trust to start building. And then that's going to open the door for us to eventually start skill building. But not every opportunity has to be about skill building.
Mm.
There are some opportunities that should just be about being present, establishing a connection, and allowing joy to occur.
Mm.
And play is a really powerful moment for that. And so I would say, rather than entering into play as a director, try entering into play as a partner and seeing what kind of collateral it can get you.
Okay. That's great. That's awesome. Okay. So I guess let me go to this next question regarding like being a play partner. This for educators. Maybe some educators feel like unsure how to enter like in the play space, or may feel awkward doing it. So what are some simple ways that they can start connecting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, for that, just being a fun person. Sometimes
Yeah.
we forget about, like, we just need to be a fun person, be someone that kids want to be around. And we know how to do that. I mean, and every kid has a different kind of preference for what that means.
Hmm.
So, fun to one child is different than fun to another child. And so part of that is just being responsive to what kids like and what kids prefer. So, for one child, being fun is going to might be a little over the top, and I'm going to be really enthusiastic. And for another child, being fun and being a good play partner is I'm going to be calm and I'm just going to be present and playing alongside of them.
Mm.
Um, but I'm always just watching and taking my cues from them. But it really is just, just kind of calmly entering into the space, and just, if I'm going in with genuine, like, curiosity, kids know that. They know when we're being genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can just trust that we're coming at this from a place of openness and respect and curiosity, that's half the that's half of it right there.
Mm.
If we're just wanting to kind of just, remind ourselves, I just want to connect, then kids kids pick up on that, and they feel that, and that is really the biggest thing right there. But beyond that, if you're still feeling a little uncomfortable and unsure of what to do, then one of the best things you can do is just then go and be alongside of them, be kind of share a space, and then start to just kind of like take notice of what it is that that child is doing and see if you can maybe just start to imitate. You don't have to do the exact same things, but maybe say if that child is playing with some blocks, see if you can start to play with some blocks. You don't have to, again, be doing the exact same thing that child is doing with the blocks, but you could start to play with the blocks alongside the child nearby. And so you guys are just kind of sharing the space, engaging in a similar kind of activity. When you feel like that's going well and the child seems comfortable with it, then you could maybe start to narrate what you're doing, maybe narrate what the child's doing. And so it's like, oh, this is fun. Oh, stacking blocks and kind of putting some words to it, adding the language in, and just all the while you're taking your cues from the child and really being responsive to how the child seems to be responding to you being in the space and you joining in.
Hmm.
Um, we really like to think about joining in as you're being fun and you're being responsive, but kind of narrating, imitating, and being helpful are kind of those joining in behaviors that a play partner should do.
Yeah.
So we're not changing their play, we're not interrupting their play, we're not introducing anything new to the play.
Mm.
We are really following their lead, and that's as simple as it gets.
Mm.
But those are kind of the things that I would do if I'm really a little unsure of what to do. Those are going to be my go-to strategies.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I do agree. Especially me having two kids, I had to learn to not overcomplicate play and like interacting with kids. It's just come down to just turn your brain off and just have fun, be on their level, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Play is fun.
yeah. Exactly. That's awesome. So, let's see. So I know sometimes an educator may have to like try to expand a child's play. Just it's a
Yep.
natural. Need to learn new things, grow new things, try new things. Do you have any ways that educators can gently expand a child's play without overwhelming them or maybe taking away the joy that they already find in a certain activity?
Yes, that's such a great question. And that is something that we do need to do. And that's part of the teaching process. And this is where, we again, if we have taken the time to build that connection and we're really clued into the child and we really are responsive to that child and kind of can really read the signals, then we know when it's time to expand. We can and we know when we can kind of up the ante and when we need to back off. Um, and it's a very individualized process, but expansion expansion is part of teaching, and so this has to happen for every child. Um, and when it comes to play, then I think we want to again kind of take inventory of what are the toys and materials and actions that they are currently doing and engaging with successfully and for periods of time, and then start thinking about, okay, so what other materials could I bring into the mix that are just kind of a natural next step, or what other actions would be kind of a natural next step that doesn't feel like we're completely changing the game,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just kind of enhancing it a little bit. So, say we have a child who loves playing with My Little Ponies. And the way she loves playing with My Little Ponies is she likes to sit there and stroke their mane and tail. It feels really good. It's really soothing. So she does that. And then she also likes to take all of her My Little Ponies and she lines them up. And that's how she plays with it. And so we've been doing that with her. She's great at, like, she loves having us play with her, and she's okay with us lining them up with her. She's okay with us sitting next to her, and we just sit there and we stroke the manes and tails and line the ponies up. But you know what? It's time for her to start expanding on that a little bit. And so one thing we could do is maybe get a brush or a comb, and instead of just stroking the mane and tail with our hands, we comb and brush the manes and tails with a tool. And so it's the same action, the same motion, but we're introducing a new play object. And
Mm.
it's very functional, right? Because that's something she's going to be doing at home with her own hair. So it's a very functional play skill. It's not anything completely out of left field. And it's very much in line with what she's already enjoying doing. So
Yeah.
that's something we could try. Or maybe we find a little barn that has stalls and she lines up the ponies inside the stalls in the barn. And so again, it's the same action, it's just introducing a new element that plays off of the action that she already likes.
Got
So
it.
it's an expansion, but it's still within kind of that comfort zone.
Yes.
And then if she does that well, then over time we can start to change it up a little bit. So we like the lining up. Well, maybe we can take that and do that with cars. Maybe we can introduce an entirely different play set, and maybe we can line cars up in a garage, or maybe we can start to, instead of just lining things up, maybe we could start to sort the My Little Ponies into color groups, or grouping them by size or some other category. And so we can start to think a little more creatively about other directions that we can go with the My Little Ponies, that are a little different than just lining up or stroking the manes and tails,
Mm.
but playing off of the interest that really strong interest that she has around My Little Ponies. So that would be one way to go.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Um, okay, so I know in some of your presentations you give, you mention neurodiversity, and so
Hmm.
could you kind of explain that and talk about how neurodiversity can help educators kind of approach play in a more supportive way to, I guess, children on the spectrum, but also just children in general, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So neurodiversity is really just about just this idea that we all have different brain types, that we all have different neurotypes, and um, that's okay. That in fact that should be celebrated. That all of our brain differences are a wonderful thing, and those differences bring such a diversity um, of ideas and unique experiences to the world around us. And so autism is a specific neurotype and neurodivergence. And there's many different neurodivergences out there. And so when we think about neurodiversity, and just all these different neurotypes around us, and we think about uh, those neurotypes as being strengths rather than deficits. Those differences as strengths rather than deficits, and the same being true for play. So when we see our young learners engaging in play in different ways than maybe we are accustomed to,
Mhm.
and we look at that as gosh, they're playing in a very unique way. And we look at that through a lens of curiosity and openness and think about what strengths might that be indicative of rather than thinking about what deficit is that showing us.
Mm.
Then that can open the door for us thinking about, well then, okay, if they have a strength in this area, how can I nurture that? And how can I start to think about fostering that strength or these other strengths um, throughout the day and in all these other ways? And so I think neurodiversity is a way that we can start to kind of shift our thinking um, away from what has historically kind of been a deficit focus to really one of curiosity.
Mhm.
And that curiosity can then help us to really try and think about what strengths is everybody bringing to the table,
Mm.
um, which is a wonderful thing
Yeah.
because everybody does have strengths that they're bringing to the table and uniquenesses that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about it too. If there wasn't neurodiversity, we would kind of all think the same way. That'd be kind of boring too. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, there so many of the wonderful things that have happened. Like, I mean, when I think back to my classroom when I was teaching,
Mhm.
like uh, the best things happened in my classroom because of neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Like it was such a fun and engaging place because of neurodiversity. Like,
Awesome. I think for educators, for the educators that may worry about like doing the wrong thing when supporting the children or with autism, um, see what kind of encouragement would you give teachers who want to help but may feel unsure exactly like how to start?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like we've said, starting from a place of just that openness and curiosity and respect is always a great starting point. And you don't have to know everything. I mean, as
Hmm.
educators, as humans, as adults, we know this. We don't have to know everything. We never are going to know everything. And so if we can focus on strengths and connection, uh, that's uh, that's an amazing place to come from.
Hmm.
Um, and and again, as educators, we know this. If we can focus on the things that are within our control, which is the environment, our behavior, and our mindset, then we are doing an amazing job. Um, and I would say small changes have a huge impact. And so if we can just start by identifying what are those small adjustments that we feel comfortable and confident making, do that. Start there. That's always a good thing to do. Um, and then inevitably, I mean, I think a lot of times in education, we feel like we are, especially in early childhood, I think this is especially true, but a lot of times we might feel like we're kind of working on an island by ourselves and that we have to do everything on our own. And that's just not true. There are other people who have experience doing things that we haven't done before or more experience doing things that we want to do. And so if we can tap into that community and find those people, then there's power in numbers and collaboration is so powerful. And so find the people that you can trust, find a mentor, um, learn from your colleagues, learn from that connection. Um, and then just remember you don't have to be perfect. It's not about perfection. You just need to be present. Kids know when you are present, and it's about the kids.
Hmm.
And so we're putting undue stress on ourselves if we're trying to be perfect, because that's not the name of the game. So you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. And every time you choose patience over pressure, or you choose to be curious, um, and you choose connection over compliance, like you're creating an environment where not just children with autism, but all children are going to want to be, and it's an environment where they can thrive. So
Mm-hmm.
again, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. So choose presence, choose connection, and that's going to get you so far. So that's what
Awesome.
I would say.
Awesome. Okay. I'm almost afraid to ask this last question because I think you just answered it. But if I didn't, feel free to answer different. But I guess just to close it out, if every early educator listening today remembered just one thing about supporting autistic children through play, what would you want it to be if it was one thing?
I mean, it would definitely be along those lines,
Yeah.
but I would also say that just trust that their play is meaningful and valuable, and be willing to follow their lead and incorporate their interests, because when you incorporate their interests and you follow their lead, it's going to maximize learning and engagement, not just in play, but in so many other ways. And when we trust that their play is meaningful and we follow their lead, um, then all of these things communicates respect, it builds their confidence, and it allows them to authentically be themselves. And and that's what can create a feeling of safety. Um, and that's what we strive for. So just
Yeah.
trust that it's meaningful and valuable, because it is.
Okay. Awesome. Also, I guess before we close out, is there any kind of resources or anything or way somebody can get more information if they want more information about autistic play or just anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if folks want to go to the Vanderbilt Kennedy Center Triad website, we have a lot of different downloadable resources, and we have upcoming training opportunities. We also have an online learning platform that they can access via our website. And on that platform, there's just brief online trainings. They're all free. Everything is free. Um, but we have a number of online trainings specifically about play. So there's
Mm.
videos about play. There's brief online trainings about play. And so if you're excited about this topic of play, then we have a lot of different resources that are geared towards you. Um, and geared towards helping early childhood providers and educators really navigate the world of play.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, Becky, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it. The conversation was great, and I think this will benefit a lot of early educators. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And so, everyone, hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Like Becky said, be sure to check out those resources if you want some more information about autistic play and just autism in general. And yes, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.